Lila Monroe told herself to keep her hand steady. 4 flutes of champagne, 1 tray of oysters, 1 rude man with a platinum watch who had already snapped his fingers at her. Twice. Faster, the man hissed, snatching a glass. The liquid trembled, but Lila didn't. She'd promised herself that tonight wouldn't break her. Not when her mother Ruth had pills timed to the minute. Not when the electric bill had a red stamp across the top. Not when this private uptown mansion gig paid triple. Breathe, whispered Jonah, her cousin gliding by with canapes. 1 more hour. I can do an hour, she said, forcing a smile. I can do anything for an hour. A string quartet painted soft gold across a ballroom of colder gold. New York's glittering. Lila moved like spill-proof light. Invisible. Furniture. That's what Jonah called it. We're furniture. Nobody stares at a chair. Chairs don't have mothers waiting on medicine or design school acceptance emails sitting unopened because deposits are impossible. Chairs don't flinch when rich men snap. Bathroom, she mouthed to Jonah. He nodded, pointed down a shadowy hall lined with museum flush lighting and silent, expensive art. Lila slipped away. The hum of money softened behind her. The corridor forked. 3rd door on the right? Or the next? She took a left, because left was quieter and quiet felt like oxygen. A door near the end stood cracked, soft lamplight spilling like a secret. Hello? Is this the… She pushed it open with her shoulder, tray tucked close. Sleek walls, a low couch, a panel that looked like a sci-fi thermostat. No windows, no sound from the party. She shifted backwards, meaning to leave. The door side shut. A thud, heavy as a verdict. 4 mechanical clicks stitched the air. She blinked, turned the handle. Locked. Hello? She laughed once, a brittle sound. Sorry, wrong room. She knocked again. She realized the walls were swallowing her voice. She set the tray down, went to the panel. Fingerprint scan required. Right. Of course, she pressed her palms to the cool wall, willing herself not to cry. You are not a problem. You are a solution. That was Ruth's phrase taped above the stove. Lila scanned the room for another exit. Nothing. A slim camera in the corner winked a green light. She looked up at it, hands raised like gentle surrender. I'm Lila. Waitstaff. I just need a door. The panel chirped. A deep voice filled the room, velvet over steel. You're safe. Don't panic. I'm coming. She spun. Who? Where? Adrian Vale, the voice said. Calm, measured. This is my home. The name vibrated through headlines she'd only skimmed at bodegas. Adrian Vale, security software, private equities, a fleet of patents, and a talent for disappearing from his own parties. The kind of billionaire people never expect to meet, unless they deliver champagne to his friends. I'm so sorry, she said, cheeks burning. I took a wrong turn. The door shouldn't have been open, he murmured. Give me 1 minute. 1 minute stretched itself long and thin. Lila paced. She thought about Ruth at home, the 10 p.m. alarm on her cheap phone, the pillbox with neat days like soldiers. She imagined Jonah looking for her, finding only her tray, abandoned like a dropped torch. Beeping at the door, a heavy mechanism purred and stopped. Mr. Vale, she called, heart leaping. The intercom crackled. Secondary protocol engaged. Manual override failed. The room is in lockdown. What does that mean? It means we'll need to reset the entire system. From the operations hub, hesitation. Hours. The word hit like cold water. I can't be here for hours. My mother. I'll send my assistant to your address, he said. Quick now, decisive. She'll identify herself. Your mother will not miss anything. What's the address? Lila pressed her eyes closed. Do you trust him? Trust the camera? Trust the voice that sounds like answers? She gave the address anyway because love is sometimes numbers spoken into a ceiling. More beeping, metal shifting. The door slid open, relief flooding her, in time to see a tall man in a dark suit step inside. Jaw set, blue eyes like winter sky. He pressed his palm to the panel. System error. The door closed behind him, thunking the room into sealed silence. Lila blinked. You locked yourself in? Adrian Vale exhaled once. slow. I designed this system. I thought I could override it from inside. So now we're both stuck. Yes, great, she said, and surprised herself by laughing. Maybe it was hysteria. Maybe it was the way his perfect composure cracked around the edges. Maybe it was the sudden, ridiculous intimacy of being trapped in a billionaire's panic room with the billionaire himself. I have water, he offered, almost sheepish, and protein bars. Like a sleepover, she deadpanned. Like a contingency, he corrected, but his mouth curved a millimeter. Somewhere in the mansion, music swelled and chatter lifted, a life still going, while in here the night stood very still. It is strange how quickly a room learns your heartbeat. At 10:02 p.m., Lila's phone, rescued by staff per Adrian's terse call, vibrated on the low table. A text from Jonah. You okay? Boss says, malfunction. I'm covering. Text me. Another from a number labeled Mira, Adrian's assistant. Reached your mother. Ruth took meds on time. She's resting. We'll stay nearby for an hour. Call if needed. Some knots in Lila's chest loosened. Others tightened. She looked at Adrian across the small room. He'd removed his jacket, draped it over a chair, rolled his cuffs to his forearms. The suit said blade. The undone cuffs said bruise. Thank you, she said quietly. You're welcome. For sending someone. Most people wouldn't. He studied the panel as if sheer focus could bend circuits. Most people don't build houses that lock them in when they try to help. Touché. He fetched 2 waters and a small stack of emergency rations. She perched on the couch. He chose the chair opposite, leaving a careful gulf of air between them. Why a panic room? She asked, biting a granola bar. I mean, I know the word panic is right there, but you seem like a person who doesn't. My sister hid in a closet for 3 hours, he said, voice level, eyes not. When we were kids. Burglary. My parents didn't. It doesn't matter. I learned early that locks can be the difference between loss and survival. I'm sorry. 2 simple words that didn't fix anything, but sometimes let someone breathe. I built software first, he went on, almost as if narrating to the wall. Then infrastructure. The rooms came later, backup to backups. To keep danger out, Lila said softly. To keep what matters in. The room hummed. Lila tucked her feet under her, warmed by the odd kindness of his admission. What matters to you? She asked. He blinked, surprised. People usually asked him how, not why. Integrity, he said after a beat. Control. A pause like walking to the edge of an old memory. Family. Even when it's just one person left. My mom, Lila said, offering a truth in exchange for his. Ruth. It's been me and her since I was 16. She used to hide little notes for me to find. You are not a problem. You are a solution. Lila smiled small. I stick them everywhere now. That sounds steadying, he said, testing the word. It keeps the lights on, she said. Most days. What do you want when the lights are paid? She laughed under her breath. Design school. I sketch logos on napkins, brand kits while the bus rattles. If I could make something that helps a small shop feel big? She shrugged. That'd be good. He looked at her differently then, like rescanning an object and getting a sharper image. You're a builder too. I mean, with fonts. Structure is structure, he said, and trust is a brand. The room's lighting dimmed on an automatic cycle. Time turned liquid. They talked. Not the kind of talk that devours hours with drama, but the kind that stitches 2 people across a measured distance. Quiet truths, small jokes. At midnight, he insisted she take the couch. At 2 a.m., she caught him watching the panel, not sleeping. At 3, she dreamed of doors with keyholes that looked like moons. At 6:10, instant coffee steamed in their hands. He'd unbuttoned his collar. Without the uniform, he looked almost like a man who might stand in line at the corner bodega and ask the clerk about her mother. My team says we'll have the reset by 7, he said. She nodded and felt the strangest tug, relief braided with something like disappointment. The room had been a tiny country they'd built overnight, with a population of 2 and a constitution of candor. Leaving it meant rejoining the noisy republic of money and rolls. What will you tell your guests? She asked. The truth, he said. Malfunction. No mention of you unless you want it. I do not, she said, deadpan. A soft chime. Green on the panel. He stood. Moment of truth. He pressed his palm to the glass. The lock sighed, thoughtful this time, and opened. A woman with sleek hair and a surgical notebook stood outside. Mr. Vale, she said, everything is secure. Mira, he said, Miss Monroe. He tilted his head toward Lila, introducing them like equals. Please escort her out the east corridor. And see that her mother's follow-up meds are delivered this afternoon. That's not necessary, Lila said, heat in her cheeks. It's logistics, he replied, meeting her eyes. And responsibility. Responsibility isn't charity, she said. No, he agreed. It's what people owe each other when doors misbehave. She almost smiled. Almost. At the service entrance, Mira pressed a small envelope into Lila's hand. Compensation, she said. Time and distress. Lila shook her head. I take it, Mira said gently. He pays lawyers 15 times that to fix smaller messes. Lila thought of Ruth's pillbox, of the electric bill's red stamp. Okay, she said, the word half prayer, half apology. Outside, a black car waited like punctuation at the end of a long sentence. Lila slid in, looked back at the mansion, and wondered why stepping out of a panic room felt like leaving safety instead of entering it. 2 days later, a text from an unknown number. Ms. Monroe, Adrian Vale. I'd like to discuss a matter in person. Lunch? Lila typed and deleted 3 responses before sending, I don't leave my mother at night. Lunch is fine. I'll take the subway. Car at 12. Driver knows where, came the reply, annoying and inevitable. The rooftop garden at 70 Blue was the kind of beautiful that made you forget rents and receipts. Adrian stood by the glass railing, city sprawling like a circuit board. In daylight, he looked less myth, more man. You came, he said. The corner of his mouth lifted. Near smile, private. You asked, she answered. What's the matter you wanted to discuss? A proposition, he said, hands in pockets, unfolding careful words. Business. I reviewed your portfolio. My portfolio. Your site. Your Behance. Your napkin scans a flash of humor. He'd looked everywhere. I want to launch a consumer division. We need to feel human without losing spine. I'd like you to design it. She stared. You could hire firms with lobbies. I prefer talent with pulse, and he said simply, then named a number that sent her water the wrong way. Adrian, that's too much. It's market, he said, and leverage. You'll work remote, pace yourself around your mother's schedule. Full creative, my final approval. Why me, she asked, because men like him didn't say please without reason. Truth bleeds off your work, he said. It's not trying to be liked. It earns it. Lila bit her lip. One condition, no more envelopes. I want to earn it clean. Agreed, he said, not even blinking. Weeks blurred into a rhythm Lila could live inside. Mornings at Ruth's appointments, afternoons drawing shapes that felt like locks and doors, and the feeling of safety when a light flips on. Evenings toggling color palettes while Jonah stirred soup in their tiny kitchen. Adrian's feedback came concise and respectful, Mira's emails punctual, the secure server a new kind of altar where she placed her best work. When Adrian flew to Singapore and Tokyo, he called from time zones that tasted like airport coffee. He asked about Ruth. He listened. Once, near midnight her time, he said, You asked me in that room what mattered. The answer keeps changing. The line held a soft silence where a different kind of answer might grow. Back in New York, he invited her to headquarters to present. Lila wore her one good dress and her grandmother's earrings. In a glass-walled room with a view that made your stomach flip, executives grilled her and nodded, and then the marketing director, sharp, kind, said, It's brilliant. Adrian said nothing, just watched Lila with that intent focus that had unnerved her in the panic room, but steadied her now. Afterward, in the doorway, he said, Charity gala this weekend. Cancer research. Come as my guest. She hesitated. He added soft, It would mean something, given Ruth. Okay, she said, and wondered if okay could fold around all the electricity under her ribs. The dress arrived in a box with a note. Selected by Mira per your measurements. If not to your taste, we'll exchange. The fabric poured like emerald light across her hands. Ruth cried. Lila laughed and scolded, and then tried it on. And for a moment the mirror didn't show a waitress or a worrier or an unpaid deposit student. It showed a woman. At the museum, photographers called Adrian's name. He offered her his arm. You look. He stopped and recalibrated. Strong, he said, which somehow was better than any other adjective. Inside wealth shimmered like a mirage. He introduced her not as arm candy, but as our lead designer. Some people blinked, some beamed. One woman with diamond shoulders and a smile like a scalpel glided over and sat in Adrian's empty seat while he stepped out to answer a security alert. Victoria Harrington, she announced with the air of a brand that thinks it needs no explaining. Adrian and I have history. Do you? Lila asked, polite as a blade in its sheath. He's generous, Victoria said, eyes skating over the emerald dress, the borrowed polish. He finds causes, uplifts them. It's sweet. Until he gets bored, she took Lila's untouched champagne, sipped, and set it down. You're this month's narrative, the panic room girl. It's making the rounds. Lila's breath snagged. He said no one would. In our circle, dear, oxygen carries gossip, Victoria purred. Enjoy your evening. It'll be a lovely memory when you're back to trays by the time Adrian returned. False alarm. Lila's smile was a sheet of ice. What happened? He asked at once. Nothing, she said, standing. I should go. Lila, I don't belong in your footnotes, she said, and walked into the night because sometimes the only thing you can do is choose your own exit. She ignored his calls, emailed Mira a professional line about finals and bandwidth, tidied her files the way you tidy a room you no longer intend to call home. Ruth watched her move through the apartment like a ghost and finally said, Baby, doors don't just close. People close them. On Tuesday morning, Ruth called while Lila was halfway to class. There's a man in a too expensive suit in our living room, she said. He looks like regret with cufflinks. Get home. Adrian stood when Lila walked in, like he was remembering how legs work. He looked at her the way he'd looked at the panel before it turned green. I told you I didn't want. Victoria weaponizes loneliness, he said, cutting gently across her practiced speech. She's wrong. And yes, someone leaked. A guard. He's gone. I didn't tell. I wouldn't. That doesn't change the math, Lila said, arms folded around the part of her that had started to believe. You belong where the floor is marble. I belong where the thermostat sticks. He stepped closer, stopped, tried again. You told me in that room that your mother's words turned problems into solutions. This, he gestured between them, isn't a problem I'm trying to buy my way out of. It's a life I'm trying to buy my way into. Yours, if you'll have me. Words dropped their costumes. His voice was raw. You saw me. Not the profile, not the patents. You asked if I was happy. The answer was no. Then a woman in a black dress told me, truth tastes like coffee and courage, and I... He huffed a laugh at himself, shook his head. I'm falling in love with you, Lila. Not the panic room myth. You... The room hiccuped. Ruth coughed from the hallway, failed at retreating fast enough. Lila's laugh broke like light. You could have said that without the part where I felt like a headline. I'm learning, he said, a little helpless, a little hopeful. She moved to him. Not too close, not too far. It won't be easy. Nothing worth locking with a key ever is. People will talk. Let them waste their breath. Don't buy me things to fix me, she said. I'll buy you time, he said, and ask your permission first. Lila took a slow breath, then closed the distance and kissed him. Not a fairy tale kiss. A yes, we know what bills are kiss. Consent and corridor and coffee and courage. Ruth sniffed loudly. Stay for grilled cheese, Mr. Vale? Please call me Adrian, he said, voice thick. And yes. The weeks that followed built a bridge from two directions. He learned the names of the nurses at Ruth's clinic. She learned that boardrooms aren't that different from back rooms. Both want to know if they can trust you. He left a pair of jeans at her place. She stopped apologizing when she chose the $8 diner over a dining room with 3 forks. The gossip churned and faded. Work blossomed. The consumer launch landed like a door that opens exactly when your hand reaches it. Her logo, a stylized shield that doubled as a door frame with a tiny negative space keyhole shaped like a heart if you squinted, trended on design blogs. Adrian announced a fund to cover emergency home security grants for domestic violence survivors. He named it the Monroe Initiative and asked her before he did. One evening he texted, "Dinner at mine? Just us." When she arrived, the house was mostly sleeping. He led her down a familiar corridor, stopped at a familiar door, and pressed his palm to the panel. The room had changed. No bunker, a studio, 2 monitors, a drafting table, plants, a bulletin board pinned with her sketches he'd printed from the secure server, a low couch for reading, a kettle. It felt like someone had looked inside her head and then built a room that believed in her. She touched the table. I wanted you to have a place here that doesn't ask you to be anyone else." He pressed a button. The walls shifted to display scans with Ruth's oncologist's clean margins. "Shared with Ruth's permission," he said without prompting. Then a charter came up for a new foundation, the Ruth Monroe Fund to cover medication gaps for caregivers. Tears rose in Lila's eyes. She blinked them back, because gratitude can drown you if you don't take sips. "There's more," Adrian said, awkward suddenly, like a boy. He offered a small black box. "Adrian," she whispered, hard in her throat. "It's not that," he said quickly. "Not yet." Inside lay a single silver key on a slim chain. "A key to this room?" she asked, thumb tracing its smooth edge. "To this house," he said. "Every door. No more locks between us." Lila slid the chain into her palm, felt the small, precise weight of an invitation you don't get from men who collect people like coins. "Sometimes I like a locked door," she teased, eyes warm. "Then you lock it," he said, "and I wait on the other side until you say my name." She kissed him, laughter cracking open the last of the old fear. Later, on the rooftop garden he'd built because she said open air heals houses, she asked him the question that had started everything. "Are you happy?" He didn't blink. "With you?" Yes, 6 months later, the consumer brand Lila built made ordinary families feel extraordinary. Safe, seen, strong. Her small studio in Brooklyn, Keylight, opened in a rehab building Adrian bought and then asked if she wanted. She said yes after she negotiated rent. Ruth's remission held steady. She helped run the fund with a boss's clipboard and a nurse's heart. Jonah ran operations for Keylight like he'd been born inventorying hope. The panic room was never a panic room again. It was where Lila drew when the world got loud, where Adrian read while she worked, where they locked the door sometimes just because privacy is its own kind of prayer. On an autumn evening, the color of copper, Adrian reached into his pocket and pulled out a different box. This time the emerald caught the light like the first night's dress. He didn't kneel. He didn't need the distance. He stood in front of her like a man who had learned how to open without code. "Lila Monroe," he said, "will you build the rest of the rooms with me?" She laughed and cried and said yes, because some doors you walk through knowing there will be drafts and repairs and nights when the hinges creak, and you choose them anyway, because the bravest thing a locked heart can do is hand someone else the key.